everybody. Let me look in here and see who's here. It looks like I see Andrew and Anita and Antoine Fletcher, Bradley Smith, Carmen. Good morning, Carmen. I think that's my daughter. Christopher Adams, Daria Webb, Iman Price, Gloria Dunn, Justin Mezzatine, or Mezzatin, Letitia Parker, Lila, Lolita, I know that name, Lolita. That's a beautiful name. You never forget a name like that. M. Flynn, Marlon, Michael Watkins. Oh, we related. Okay. Mikhail, Maya Boswell. Hey, Maya. Good to see you, Maya. Maya is also a part of my family. Nioka Brown, Ryan Pierre, Tamara Franklin. Good morning, everybody. So let me jump into the first part of the conversation. A lot of times I like to tell you guys what's going on in the investing environment, and then we dig deeper and I start answering your questions. And as we answer questions, nice, easy conversation that allows you to, really step up your investment knowledge. Now, the first 5 minutes, I'm live on YouTube, so people can hear from anywhere. Those that want to continue into the deeper Q&A part where we actually dissect and where I'm going to break down. For example, I want to break down and show you guys exactly how I'm making money on AMC stock. I probably made maybe about $8,000 this week on AMC, and I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing. And so those that want to be a part of that, just go sign up at the blackstockmarketprogram.com. And the first month is free, and so you can join the class. And we do this every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, so and everything's recorded, so that you can have the recordings for life, and they're all yours. And there's dozens of them, and I don't know how many classes I've recorded. I've been doing this every week for probably, I don't know, 6 years or something, 7 years. So anyway, all right. So let's jump in. Let me talk about Bitcoin. I want to talk about what's going on with Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is burning. Bitcoin is actually plummeting. It's dropped by about 12% in the last 24 hours. And so you may say, well, what's going on with my Bitcoin? Why is it dropping? Well, typically when you see a big price move like that, remember I was telling you guys last week that the number one factor in moving a price of an asset tends to be information, just new information that makes people speculate differently and see the asset in a different way. So the information, the story behind the price movement for Bitcoin is that does anybody remember? Give me a yes or no if you remember this whole thing. Colonial, I think the company's called Colonial, where there was a big hack. Colonial, I guess they have a pipeline that serves like 40% of the oil in all the Northeast, and Colonial was hacked. And so when Colonial was hacked, the hackers used something called ransomware. And ransomware is basically something where they just kind of hold your company for ransom. So they put a bunch of crap in your computer and they say, we're going to shut down your computer system unless you pay us a bunch of money. And in order to make sure the money's not traceable, and I put air quotes when I say not traceable, because I don't think it is untraceable. I just don't believe that. They make you pay them in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, one of the leading features of Bitcoin, one of the things that made it so promising and exciting and innovative for so many people, particularly libertarians, is they said the government can't track this. The government can't keep up with what's going on with your money. The government can't get into pocket watching, right? And I just don't think that's true. I think the government's going to always get in your business. They're probably in your business in ways that you don't even know. I'm sure that most of the surveillance technology they actually have, they haven't even told you about. But that's neither here nor there. So basically, the ransomware hit Colonial. They had to pay him millions of dollars in Bitcoin. I think at the time, I think they paid him, I don't know if it was like 46 Bitcoins or something, or maybe that's a number that I just made up in my head. But it was enough Bitcoins where it was about $4.4 million at the time. Well, just 2 days ago, there was a story that said that the FBI had recovered all this money from the hackers, or from the so-called digital terrorists. They got all this money back, and they were able to get it by getting the private security key of one of the hackers. Right? They got his private key, and they said give the money back. They made him give the money back, and then they shut down the whole hacking group. I think the group's called Dark Side or something like that. And this was a big deal. This is a big deal because what it basically did was it was a big test for the alleged all these security features of Bitcoin. It was a big test, and Bitcoin failed the test. It basically said that when the feds really want to get you, they're gonna get you. And again, that's really definitely true for everybody in here. If you're making money on your crypto, you got to pay your taxes and all that. They're gonna find out where that money's at. Don't think that you're hiding it. Nobody will know. That's just not, even if, or if you're getting a divorce or something, don't think that there aren't people that can't go in and who don't specialize in finding people's crypto assets. So basically, when they access the private security key and were able to break through the security features of Bitcoin, that caused the price of Bitcoin to drop, because now people are like, well, what's the point? What's the big deal with Bitcoin now? Because Bitcoin it's not secure like we thought it was. So it doesn't mean Bitcoin has no value. It just means that things have kind of changed. Also, I think that there's kind of a bit vendetta where the government's kind of hating on Bitcoin. The government's jealous, the same way a girl might be jealous if she finds out that that her boyfriend likes another girl, right? And she starts whispering, well, she's a slut, right? Whatever, right? And that you know how it is. So basically, the governments are not happy with the existence of cryptocurrency in general, because it takes away their economic power. And so what they've been doing in the media, I believe, and I don't know if this is planned or not, I think that it could be, is I've noticed they've been associating Bitcoin. Does anybody else notice this? They've really been associating Bitcoin a lot with ransomware. It's almost like ransomware and Bitcoin have become kind of synonymous, where people are associating, um, you know, they're associating the terrorist acts or the digital terrorism with Bitcoin. And they did that with Airbnb. When Airbnb started taking off and doing really well, the hotels got jealous and they started, suddenly there are these articles saying, this lady went and stayed in an Airbnb and someone killed her, right? They don't talk about all the people who don't get killed in the Airbnb. They talk about the one who did. So basically, a lot of people are working to associate Bitcoin and crypto with toxicity and with illegal activity. And that's been something they've been doing for a long time. It hasn't worked to this point. I mean, to this point, Bitcoin continues to go up in value. So it's shown resilience against these sorts of criticisms. And so ultimately, this whole ability of the feds to go back and get this money back right there really is kind of like it's kind of like in your face to Bitcoin, right? It's like a big basketball game where you're like trying to see who's better between the Lakers and the Celtics or whatever, and the Celtics beat them by 20 points. Well, at that point, the debate kind of shifts. Feds are kind of sort of staking their claim. Now, here's the thing. I was trying to process this in terms of saying, what does this mean? I remember when you talk about a financial asset, when it has a big dip like this, especially when it dropped down from I think 12% in one day. Well, the question you always have to ask yourself is, did you catch a cold, or do you have pneumonia, or do you have something more serious, right? Do you have cancer or something that's going to kill you, right? And so, or could kill you, not going to, but could, right? There's a lot of cancer survivors out here, so I don't want to say it like that. But basically, you are looking at a situation where it's like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean for the future of Bitcoin? And I will tell you what my conclusion is. The short answer is that I've decided I'm going to actually buy the dip. With Bitcoin, it's down to 31,000. It could go down further. It's a long-term play, but I am going to actually systematically continue to buy the dip, because there are lots of indicators that say that if Bitcoin maintains its relevance within the crypto space, which there's no reason to think that it wouldn't, that when the more institutional money is going to keep pouring in. There's a really interesting guy named Mike Novogratz in the Bitcoin space. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he's invested billions of dollars in the space, et cetera. And he made an interesting point about how the institutional money has pushed up the price of Bitcoin. That when the big money managers, the people that have the big money, started putting their money into Bitcoin, it started pushing the price up. So basically, because of that, he's basically made, and what I think is an accurate point, that once they approve things like a Bitcoin ETF stands for exchange traded funds. That's when all your retirement money and all that stuff starts getting invested in Bitcoin, even on a small scale. That's going to push up the price, because Bitcoin is like a small lake, and the institutional investors are a big whale. So when you put a big whale in a little lake, then the water is just going to splash. It's going to make a big splash. And so the equivalent of that would be that when these institutional investors, the big whales, start really diving into Bitcoin, you're going to start seeing a splash. You're going to see a big jump in the price. Maybe Bitcoin jumps to 80,000, 100,000, 200,000. It may take time, though. It may not happen overnight. But there are lots of people who actually like Gary Gensler, the new head of the SEC, who they hope can actually achieve a little bit of regulatory clarity on Bitcoin. When it comes to Bitcoin and cannabis, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty that causes that creates economic confusion. And one of the things about economic models is that when there's confusion, prices go down. When there's clarity, prices go up. So the creation of a clarity in the crypto space and in the cannabis space is probably going to be good for you as a long-term investment. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and answer all the questions you guys submitted in advance. I always answer those questions first. Don't forget, we meet for class every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I answer your questions right here. If you want to find the recording or any other recordings, you can just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, and that will let you go in and see what we talked about that day, or also leave your questions for me. You can see what stocks I'm buying, things like that. And basically, I just give you guys a deep dive, honest reflection of my portfolio. Because believe me, I wouldn't be talking about this stuff so confidently if A, I didn't know what I was talking about, which you guys, I hope I've shown that. But then B, I am actually making money at this. Like, this is actually where the money resides, and I want you to kind of shift that culture in your family and help them understand that working for money is the worst way in the world to make money. Like, you only do that until you can move forward. It's like when I was in high school. My first vehicle was a moped, right? And I rode my moped back and forth to my job at Taco Bell. But, a moped is for teenagers. A moped, if I was still 50 years old riding a moped, then that would make me look a little bit silly, not making fun of people, but seriously, like, I'm a grown man now, I should have a car, right? Well, the same thing is true, I think, when it comes to making money. In the beginning, maybe you make your money through working so you can build up some financial capital because you're using your human capital, right? But then eventually, after you've been investing consistently, doing things like the $5 a day investing plan, you should be transitioning over where you're at least hybrid, where you're making some of your money from working, but you're making a lot of money just from investing from your assets, right? And then when you get older, when you're tired and you can't, your back is hurting and you don't want to get up and go to work every day, you're making most of your money from your financial assets. So what happens is, I want you to kind of understand economics so you don't stunt your own economic growth. So you're not riding a moped at the age of 50, 60 years old, because that gets old, that gets tired. When I used to ride my moped to work at Taco Bell, I remember it would be 5 degrees outside and my nose would be freezing, my fingers would freeze. No matter what kind of gloves I got, my fingers would freeze because all the wind was hitting my hands, and that's what I had to do. I did what I had to do back then to get to work. But now I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at 50 years old, right? So just kind of keep that in mind in terms of how you think about your investing evolution. The question is, what is different about the way I'm living now that differs from where the way I was living 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago? It may not be your fault that you struggle financially or that you started off in the struggle, but it is your responsibility to get out of that struggle and to make the choices that are going to put you in a better position. Okay, so let's get started with your questions. The blackstockmarketprogram.com is where you can log in and ask me any question. I'll answer every single question. I'm going to spend 2 hours or at least an hour and a half today. All we're going to do is I'm going to fly through all the questions you guys submitted in advance. And also then after that, I'm going to go to the questions that you guys submit in the chat. So let's get started here.